What is up, guys? Kid here of Burn One with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, as always, here with another deck profile. This time it's on Dirt Rune. We just had a deck profile on Chess Rune, so we might as well cover the other archetype that is seeing popularity right now, which is Dirt Rune. It got some cool new tools, mostly in Wizardess of Oz, so let's get right into the deck profile and check it out. Alright guys, we'll just hop right into the deck profile itself here. First things first is Teachings of Creation. It's a 1-drop amulet that draws a card on play. Solid card all around, and obviously it has stack to help with our whole dirt profile. Next here is Witch's Cauldron. This is a new amulet that was added in set 3, so this is a 1-drop stack, obviously. With Fanfare, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a card with Urwrite from among them and add it to your hand. Put the remaining cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. This adds a little bit more consistency to our deck. There are some times where you do whiff on this, which is really rough, but at worst case scenario, it is still basically a stack for us to abuse later and use with some of our Earthright abilities. Next here, Crafty Warlock. This is a really solid 2-drop. It is a 2/2 that has last word, summon a magic sediment token, so we can start generate that while applying pressure to the board. And we obviously play 2 of its Evo, which changes the last word into summon a magic sediment token and then add an extra stack onto it, so you basically get 2 for the price of 1 here, and then you can use those later to get huge value, because the whole game plan here is we want to abuse all of the Earthright stuff to gain as much value as possible. Fire Chain here is kind of one of our only few control spells, since we're kind of playing for a tempo game plan with our followers into like burning into the late game. Fire Chain here just for early cleanup, so against aggro this is really good against like sword, for example, because you get to split this up into like a 2-in-1, so you can get a swordsman and another 2/2 or something like that off the board. Otherwise it's a 2-drop, deal 3 damage to 1 follower on the board, which is usually able to clear up most 2 and 3 cost followers currently around in the game. Other than that, we move on to Alchemist Workshop here. This is another Earth Sigil amulet here. On play, you summon a Strike Form Golem, 3/2 with Rush, so it helps us clear some things out as well. Like I said, the 3 attack power generally clears most 2 and 3 drops right now, other than ones that are evolved, obviously. And this is another way to build more stack onto the board, as well as apply pressure that way if there's nothing on the board to worry about. Now there's a 3/2 that they have to deal with. Ancient Alchemist, which has been a staple since set 1 for Earthright, just Dirt Rune in general. It's a 3-drop, 2/5. The 5 health being really tough to deal with, though. It kind of just does get blown out by egg, so you can't, drop this willy-nilly in early game against certain matchups unless you're trying to force them to discard their entire hand, for example against Egghaven. But otherwise, this has a Fanfare Earthright. Put 2 Guard from Golems into your EX area, which is really good. Those are 2/3 Golems with Ward, and it costs 3 to evolve this follower. We play 3 of the evolve form as always. Whenever this card is on your field, your golem followers cost 1 less to play, which means the golems in our EX area now cost 1 instead of 2. And then whenever a golem follower is put into the field, select an enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal 3 damage to it. This is kind of the way we start burning out our opponent or controlling the board this way. Since this Ancient Alchemist usually generates golems by itself, it's kind of like a self-sustaining card for the most part. So you can play this, Evo at the next turn, and start moving up the golems to either push for more damage or clear up the board, so that you have a wide board that they have to deal with. It being a 3/6 after Evo 2 makes it just barely out of range of egg, which is like the sweet spot. Once you get out of the 5 health range, a lot of things take 2 cards to remove it off the board. So if you're able to play this and then Evo it the next turn, or Evo it in the same turn to protect it that way, you can apply a lot of pressure on the board, because this is a card they immediately have to deal with. All right, Remy and Ramy Witchy Duo. This came out in set 2. It's still a super solid card, since we're playing more of the follower tempo game plan, where we just kind of want to curve out and play followers onto the board and apply pressure that way, forcing trades into us instead of us trading into them. Remy Ramy Witchy Duo is really solid 3-drop that evos for 1. It's a 3/3, but on Evo it's a 4/4, and you summon a Strike Form Golem token and Earthright. If you pop an Earthright here or a stack, you get to give it +2 attack, meaning you're gonna get a 5/2 with Rush. So for 4 play points and an Earthright, we get, what is this, 9/6 worth of stats on the board, which is an insane value, obviously, on curving this on turn 3 even with Evo points is insane, especially if you're able to, you know, pop the Earthright. This card is just such good value. It kind of creates a wide board for you naturally, which applies pressure to your opponent, forcing them to either egg early, or you get a swing in for a lot of damage the following turn. And also obviously Strike from Golem, letting you clean up some stuff just in case if you need to. Once again, hitting that 5 attack threshold there, so a lot of the 5 and lower health followers will just kind of crumble to this. Runic Guarding, a set 1 staple as well. It's just so good in controlling the aggro matchup and things like that. It's a 3-drop 3/4 with ward, but it has Fanfare. Choose one of the following effects. You can either pop a stack, so Earthright, give this follower +1/+2, which is what you prefer most of the time, so you can get a 4/6 follower. It's really annoying to deal with. Otherwise, if you don't already have a magic sentiment token on the board, you can just summon it off of this, so it helps you, you know, keep up with making sediments, just in case if you're just drawing very poorly. At least it's able to generate some sediments for your later game plan. This card is solid overall. It just statted very well for a 3-drop as long as you have the Earthright to pop off. Felice, I believe is how you say it. Sorry if it's wrong. Leonian Mage. This is a new follower that was introduced in set 3. I really like this follower. It's really powerful, especially in this, obviously, because we want to give it Storm. So if you use Earthright, so pop a Sigil, this will gain Storm, and it's a 4/5 with Storm, which is really good. And then later in the game, once you present a Daria on the board, this can come out and just wipe boards over with its Spell Chain 7, deal 4 damage to the enemy follower on the 4 damage to each enemy follower on the field. This is how you kind of clean up some of those wide boards once you present a Daria onto the board. This is just a really good card overall. A lot of times you can use this also to kind of close out games, especially after playing Daria. 2 executions. What's there to really talk about? This is our quick removal of choice to just pop anything that we can't normally deal with, either follower wise or you know, we can't use some of our other very limited spells with the fire chain and stuff like that. It's just a good card. It pops up other amulets too, so against the sword matchup, this is a obviously very good card in that matchup if they're dropping Leonidas. Next, Golem Protection. This is a 4-drop spell that summons 2 Guard from Golem tokens, but it includes an effect where if you pop Earthright, you give each Golem follower on your field +1/+1, so that's not limited to only the 2 you summon. Any other ones you already have on the board now get +1/+1. You know, kind of in a way healing and creating more aggressive tempo against our opponent, I would say. Because you get to like pump your entire board of very strong golems. Especially this card is very powerful if you already have an Ancient Alchemist on the board and you're able to evo it. Playing this just represents 6 immediate face damage, followed by the huge pump across the board to all your golems that you've already created onto the board. Super solid card overall. The fact it's guard form golems too means that you can kind of like in the aggro matchups just straight up play this on 4 even without the Earthright, just to present walls to slow down our aggressive sword players. Juno's Secret Laboratory, love it or hate it, this card is kind of a staple right now in Earthright in general. This is one of the few cards that keeps generating us magic sediments onto the board, so we can keep abusing our stuff, so we don't have to rely on other effects once we present this on the board. So it's a 5-drop amulet, Fanfare, summon a Guard from Golem or Strike from Golem onto the board, which so you can kind of decide if you want to be more defensive or you need to clear something at least. Then after that, you can tap this to summon a magic sediment token, or tap this and blow up an sediment to summon a Guard from Golem or Strike from Golem. So once you get this out and then you have Ancient Alchemist in the later turns, you can just tap this to generate like a Guard from Golem, for example, and just deal 3 damage immediately to a follower or face over and over again. A lot of times your opponent's forced to like pop this away if you're getting too much value off of having so many sediments summoned from this and Guard from Golems. You can just keep generating token value over and over again through this. All right, Daria, Dimensional Witch, a fan favorite for a lot of people that play Shadowverse, especially from the digital one. So on this version of Daria though, it's a 6-drop 5/5 with 1 to Evo. Fanfare, discard your hand, put the top card of your deck into your EX area, or put the top card of your deck into your EX area, and repeat this until your EX area is full while this card is on your field. Include both spells and followers in your cemetery when counting your spell chain. So we do have a card in here that does require spell chain earlier, like I was talking about, which is Leonian Mage here. So the only time you ever get that deal 4 damage to everything on the board or enemy board is usually when you have Daria on the board, because hitting spell chain 7 is actually kind of rough for this deck because we don't play enough spells to consistently get it. But Daria like lets us circumvent that because we play a lot of followers. Suddenly now our Storm follower is also clearing the board for us, so we can go directly into face. Daria though, being so good on Evo here, it is on evolve, select a follower in your EX area for the rest of this turn. It costs 5 less to play. As you notice, a lot of the followers we have are like 5 or less, other than another Daria or Wizardess of Oz. Wizardess of Oz being a really good target for this as well, because it lets you play spells for free in a sense. And then the second part, which doesn't get used as often, but it comes up occasionally, is that you select a spell in your EX area, and for the rest of the turn, it costs 5 less to play. And then whenever this card is on your field, once again, both spells and followers in your cemetery count towards spell chain, which is very, very good. A lot of plays you can do with this when you get later into the game, especially if you have Evo points, like on turn 7, you hit a Wizard of Oz off of it, you can just play this for 1 and then have this go off and use its effect as well. Otherwise, you can hit things like Leonian Mage, and because Daria's on the board, you pull this up for free. You get to clear their board and storm them for 4 immediately, which is really good. And then, like I said, everything else here basically costs free, other than Wizardess of Oz or another copy of Daria if you hit it into the board. Finally, Wizardess of Oz, which is I think one of the big payoffs for playing Earth right now, is that when it comes into play, you summon a Magic Sediment token and then you add a stack to it and then draw a card. So not only does this card replace itself, it summons 2 stacks as well. And then it has a quick ability, so you can use it on your opponent's turn or during your turn. You pop an Earthright, and then the next spell you play this turn costs 4 less. This ability can be activated only once per turn though, obviously. So you can make a lot of cool plays later in the game where during your turn you can pop a sediment, summon Golem Protection for free. Opponent's turn, you pop a sediment, use Execution for free when you're tapped out. Sometimes people forget that this effect is on the board, which means you can kind of catch them off guard suddenly when you're tapped out and now you're playing an Execution for free. And that kind of like, if your opponent makes that mental misstep, you end up usually winning the game because they've made decisions based around not having any interaction that turn, thinking you were completely tapped out. So that's the deck. This is basically like a kind of mid-rangey tempo deck that can play into the late game. Daria letting you refill your hand once it gets low, because that's one of the issues with the deck is, it doesn't generate a lot of hand all the time. But once you hit those later turns, Daria and Wizardess of Oz is going to like push you even further for game. Things like that are very good. Wizard of Oz is a crazy card. It's a card that your opponent has to pay a lot of attention to. And then obviously Leonian Mage is such a good card. After I've seen this card in action, I've enjoyed this card a lot. Like the fact that it has Storm, and a lot of the times after Daria is played, this comes out for free, clearing up the board for you is really, really good. It applies a lot of pressure to our opponent, and sometimes during that phase of the game, like you just need to like clear the board, deal a little bit extra damage to get through to win the game, and this is what gets you there, which is the best part. Otherwise, this is a really fun Earthright deck. This is kind of like the standard Earthright deck. I'm not being spicy with it. I know I've seen some people play around with a hybrid version of Earthright plus Spell Chain, which looks like a lot of fun too. But I figured I'd give you kind of the standard powerhouse list here, where you're all in on the whole Earthright package here. And the deck feels very solid. It's very fun. So if you're looking to just try out Earthright in general, or you've opened Wizardess of Oz and you need a deck to play, try this deck list out. You can make changes after that. I feel like you can't go wrong with this list. But yeah, with that being said, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.